Taman stared at the government form on his laptop screen. The words blurred together as he read them for the third time. Host an alien visitor for 6 months. Receive monthly payments that would cover his rent and then some. It sounded too good to be true. He looked around his small apartment in Seoul. The second bedroom had been empty for 2 months now, ever since his previous roommate moved out to live with his girlfriend. Taman had been struggling to pay the full rent on his junior developer salary. Bills were piling up. This opportunity seemed like the answer to his problems, but living with an alien? That was a different story. 3 months had passed since the Velerans made first contact with Earth. They came in peace, they said. They wanted to learn about human culture. The news showed them walking through cities, visiting museums, eating at restaurants. They looked almost human except for their pale blue skin and silver hair. They were always polite, always curious, always taking notes. Taman clicked the submit button before he could change his mind. 2 weeks later, there was a knock on his door. Taman opened it to find a tall woman with pale blue skin standing in the hallway. Her silver hair fell straight to her shoulders. Her large eyes were a striking shade of violet. She wore simple Earth clothes, jeans, and a white shirt, but somehow they looked strange on her. "Hello," she said. Her voice was clear but had an odd rhythm to it. "I am Lyra. You are Taman?" "Yes, come in." Taman stepped aside. Lyra walked into the apartment carrying only a small bag. Her eyes scanned everything with intense focus. She looked at the furniture, the kitchen, the windows, as if memorizing every detail. "This is a standard human dwelling," she said. It was not a question. "Yes, I guess so. Your room is this way." Taman led her to the empty bedroom. It had a bed, a desk, and a small closet. Nothing special. Lyra set down her bag and looked around the room. She touched the wall, then the desk, then the bed. Taman wondered if she was checking if they were real. "Why do humans separate sleeping spaces?" Lyra asked suddenly. "What do you mean?" "You have your room. I have this room. Why not share one space? It would be more efficient." Taman felt his face grow warm. "We like privacy. Personal space is important to us, privacy." Lyra repeated as if tasting the word. She pulled out a small device and spoke into it in her own language. Probably taking notes. The first few days were awkward. Lyra asked questions about everything. Why did Taman eat 3 times a day? Why did he watch television? Why did he spend so much time looking at his phone? Each answer led to more questions. Taman tried to be patient. This was part of the agreement. But sometimes the questions felt too personal. One evening, Taman was looking at photos on his phone when Lyra sat down next to him on the couch. She leaned over to see the screen. "Who is this female?" she asked, pointing at a photo of Taman with a smiling woman. "That was my girlfriend. Ex-girlfriend now." Taman quickly scrolled past the photo. "Why do you keep images of her if she causes you discomfort?" Taman stopped scrolling. "How do you know she causes me discomfort?" "Your body language changed. Your breathing became faster. Your facial muscles tightened." Lyra tilted her head. "If this person brings negative feelings, why maintain a record of her?" "Because," Taman struggled to find the words. "Because it was not all bad. We had good times too. The memories are bittersweet." "Bittersweet," Lyra said slowly. "Sweet and bitter at the same time. This is contradictory." "Yes, that is exactly what it is." Lyra was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke into her device again. "More notes. On my world, we removed such contradictions long ago," she said. "Emotional attachment leads to dysfunction. We found it was more efficient to live without it." "That sounds lonely," Taman said. "Lonely," Lyra repeated. "Another word I do not fully understand." A week later, Lyra asked Taman to take her to a coffee shop. She wanted to observe humans in a social setting. They sat at a corner table while Lyra watched the other customers. She saw couples holding hands. Friends laughing together. A mother comforting a crying child. Her eyes moved from person to person, studying every interaction. "Explain what I am seeing," Lyra said. "What do you mean?" "Those 2 people are touching hands. They smile at each other. But I have seen them disagree twice already." "Why do they stay together?" "They are in a relationship. Couples disagree sometimes. It does not mean they do not care about each other." "Care," Lyra said. Another complicated word. They sat in silence for a while. Taman drank his coffee and watched Lyra watch other people. There was something almost sad about the way she looked at them, like she was watching something she could never understand. "Taman," Lyra said suddenly, "I need to ask you something." "What is it?" Will you teach me about human relationships? Taman blinked. Teach you? Yes, I have been observing for 3 months. I have read human books and articles. I have watched your films and shows. But I do not understand. This is the main question my people sent me to answer. Why do humans form these bonds when they cause so much pain? She leaned forward, her violet eyes intense. Your species seeks connection even though it leads to suffering. You create relationships knowing they will hurt you. You love knowing you will lose. My people find this illogical. But I think there is something we are missing. Something we cannot see from the outside. Taman thought about his breakup with Yunji. The pain was still fresh. Would he choose to go through it again? Part of him wanted to say no. But another part remembered the good times. The laughter. The warmth. The feeling of being understood. I am not sure I am the right person to teach you, Taman said. My last relationship ended badly. That makes you perfect, Lyra said. You have experienced both the joy and the pain. You understand both sides. Will you help me? Taman looked at her strange, earnest face. There was something touching about her curiosity. She was so far from home, trying so hard to understand something her entire species had abandoned. I will also pay you extra, Lyra added quickly. My government has funds for cultural research. Taman could not help but smile. All right. I will try to teach you. But I am not sure how much I can explain. Some things are hard to put into words. I understand. Or rather, I want to understand. That is the goal. They shook hands on it. Lyra's hand was cool and smooth, and her grip was firm. As they walked back to the apartment, Taman wondered what he had just agreed to. How do you teach someone about relationships? How do you explain the unexplainable? He looked at Lyra walking beside him, her silver hair catching the sunlight. She was taking notes on her device again, recording everything she saw. For some reason, Taman felt a small spark of hope. Maybe teaching her would help him understand things better too. Maybe explaining love to someone who had never felt it would help him make sense of his own broken heart. They had 6 months together. That should be enough time to explain human relationships, or at least to try. Taman decided to start with friendship. If Lyra wanted to understand relationships, she needed to understand the basics first. Love was too complicated. Friendship was simpler, or so he thought. Tomorrow I will introduce you to my friend Minho, Taman said over breakfast. We have known each other since university. He works at the same company as me. Lyra pulled out her notebook. She had started using a paper notebook instead of her device. She said it helped her think better. What should I observe? She asked. Just watch how we talk to each other, how we act. Friends are people who choose to spend time together. Choose. Lyra wrote that word down and underlined it. Not obligation. Exactly. We enjoy each other's company. Minho arrived the next evening with fried chicken and beer. He stopped in the doorway when he saw Lyra, his mouth falling open slightly. So it is true, Minho said. You really are living with an alien. Hello, Minho. I am Lyra. I am studying human relationships. You are Taman's friend. Yes, I am. Minho looked at Taman with wide eyes. This is so strange. They sat around the small dining table. Lyra watched them eat and talk. She asked to try the chicken. Minho and Taman spent the next 10 minutes explaining Korean fried chicken to her. It is crunchy, Lyra said, chewing slowly. And the flavor is complex. Multiple spices. Do you like it? Minho asked. I am not sure. My people do not eat for pleasure. We eat for fuel. That sounds terrible, Minho said. As the evening went on, Lyra took notes. She wrote down when Minho teased Taman about his messy desk at work. She wrote down when they laughed at an old memory from university. She wrote down when Minho complained about his own love life. I do not understand, Lyra said suddenly. You just insulted his organizational skills. Why is he smiling? Minho laughed. It is friendly teasing. We make fun of each other. It is how we show we are comfortable with each other. Making fun equals comfort? Lyra wrote this down. This seems backward. Only with friends, Taman explained. If a stranger said the same thing, it would be rude. But Minho can say it because we trust each other. Trust. This word appears often in my research. After Minho left, Lyra sat on the couch reviewing her notes. Taman cleaned up the empty chicken boxes. You shared personal information with him, Lyra said. About your work problems. About your feelings. On my world, we keep such information private. That is what friends are for. We support each other, but showing weakness could be used against you. Taman sat down across from her. That is why trust is important. Real friends will not use your weaknesses against you. They will help you with them. Lyra was quiet for a long moment. She looked at her notes, then at Taman. My people do not have this. We have colleagues. We have partnerships. But this vulnerability you speak of, we eliminated it from our society centuries ago. Does that make you happy? Happy is another complicated word, Lyra said softly. A few days later, Taman came home from work feeling terrible. His project had failed. His boss was angry. He felt like he had let everyone down. He walked into the apartment and went straight to his room without saying hello to Lyra. He lay on his bed staring at the ceiling. There was a soft knock on his door. Taman? Lyra's voice came through the door. Are you well? I am fine. Your tone suggests otherwise. Your body language when you entered was indicating distress. Taman sighed. He got up and opened the door. Lyra stood there looking concerned. Well, as concerned as an alien who did not understand emotions could look. Bad day at work, he said. Would you like to talk about it? Taman blinked. That was the question Minho usually asked. It was what friends did, and Lyra had just asked it naturally without thinking. Yes, he said. Yes, I would. They sat in the living room. Taman told her about the failed project, about how he felt like he was not good enough, about his fear of losing his job. Lyra listened. She did not take notes. She just listened. When he finished, she said something unexpected. Failure is part of learning. Every successful project at your company was probably built on previous failures. This is not the end. It is part of the process. Taman smiled despite himself. That is very logical. I am Velarin. Logic is what we do. She paused. But I also think you are good at your job. You work hard. You care about doing well. Those qualities matter. Thank you, Lyra. She nodded. Then she stood up. I will make tea. Minho mentioned that tea helps when you feel bad. I researched the best kinds for stress relief. As she walked to the kitchen, Taman felt something warm in his chest. Lyra was learning. She was actually learning about friendship, and somehow, without him noticing, they had become friends. The next week, their neighbor Hana knocked on their door. She was a woman in her 30s who lived alone with her cat. She had seen Lyra in the hallway a few times. I am sorry to bother you, Hana said, but I locked myself out of my apartment. The building manager will not be back for an hour. Can I wait here? Of course, Taman said. Hana came in and immediately noticed Lyra. Her eyes went wide. You are Valoran, Hana said. Yes, I am Lyra. This is amazing. I have seen your people on the news, but never in person. Hana was excited. She asked Lyra many questions. What was her home planet like? How did she travel to Earth? What did she think of Sol? Lyra answered each question patiently. Taman made coffee and watched them talk. He noticed something interesting. Lyra was smiling. Not a fake smile, but a real one. Small but real. When the building manager finally came and Hana could return to her apartment, she thanked them both. We should do this again, Hana said to Lyra. I would love to hear more about your world. I would like that, Lyra said. After Hana left, Lyra sat down slowly on the couch. She looked confused. What is wrong? Taman asked. I felt something when Hana said she wanted to see me again. Something pleasant, warm. Taman smiled. That is happiness. You enjoyed talking to her. You are happy she wants to be your friend. Friend? Lyra looked at her hands as if they belonged to someone else. I think I'm beginning to understand. That night, Taman lay in bed thinking about the past few weeks. Lyra was changing. She was experiencing things she had never felt before, and he was changing too. Teaching her was forcing him to think about his own relationships in new ways. Maybe this strange arrangement would help them both. The doorbell rang on a Saturday morning. Taman was still in his pajamas, eating cereal and reading the news on his tablet. Lyra was studying at the dining table as usual. Taman opened the door and found his younger sister Jiwoo standing there with a big smile and 2 shopping bags. Surprise, she said loudly. I am visiting Seoul for the weekend. I brought snacks. Before Taman could respond, Jiwoo walked in and stopped when she saw Lyra. Her mouth dropped open. You did not tell me you had a girlfriend. And she is Velarin. Jiwoo turned to Taman with wide eyes. She is not my girlfriend. She is my roommate. Taman felt his face getting hot. Hello? Lyra stood up and approached Jiwoo. I am Lyra. You must be Taman's sister. He has mentioned you. I am Jiwoo. This is amazing. You live here? Yes, I am studying human relationships. Taemin is teaching me. Jiwoo looked at her brother with a knowing smile. Teaching you about relationships? How interesting. It is not like that, Taemin said quickly. The three of them spent the day together. Jiwoo asked Lyra endless questions. She wanted to know everything about Velaran culture. Lyra answered patiently. But Taemin noticed she kept watching Jiwoo and him interact. At lunch, Jiwoo told embarrassing stories about Taemin as a child. She teased him about his bad haircut in middle school. She reminded him about the time he tried to cook and almost burned down their mother's kitchen. Taemin protested, but he was smiling. Lyra watched them with fascination. This is different from friendship, Lyra said suddenly. The way you tease each other, the shared history. This is family, yes, Jiwoo said. He is stuck with me forever, even when he is annoying. Even when you are annoying, Taemin corrected. They both laughed. Lyra took notes. Family bonds are not based on choice, Lyra said. But there is still love. This is unconditional love, yes? Exactly, Taemin said. Family does not always make sense. But we love each other anyway. That evening, after Jiwoo left to stay with a friend, Lyra was unusually quiet. She sat on the couch staring at nothing. Are you okay? Taemin asked. I was thinking about my home. We do not have siblings like you do. We are all raised in community centers. We know our biological parents, but there is no special bond. Watching you and Jiwoo today, I felt something, like I was missing something important. That is loneliness, Taemin said gently. Yes. I think I finally understand that word. 2 days later, Taemin's phone buzzed with a message. It was from Eunji, his ex-girlfriend. His heart jumped when he saw her name. Hi, Taemin. I know this is unexpected, but I was thinking about you. Can we meet and talk? Just coffee. No pressure. Taemin stared at the message for a long time. Lyra noticed his expression. What is wrong? She asked. My ex-girlfriend wants to meet. I do not know if I should go. Do you want to see her? Taemin thought about it. Part of me does. Part of me is afraid. Lyra was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I think you should go. This is part of understanding relationships too, the complicated parts. Taemin met Eunji at their old favorite coffee shop. She looked the same but different somehow. Her hair was shorter. She seemed more confident. They sat across from each other, both nervous. Thank you for coming, Eunji said. I was not sure you would, I almost did not. But I was curious. They talked for an hour. Eunji explained why she had ended things. She had been scared of commitment. She had needed time to figure out what she wanted. She said she was sorry for how she had handled it. Taemin listened. He realized something important. He was not angry anymore. The pain had faded. He could look at her and remember the good times without feeling like his chest was being crushed. I forgive you, he said. And I am sorry too. I could have been more understanding. Eunji smiled. You seem different, happier. I think I am. A lot has changed. Are you seeing someone? No, but I have a very interesting roommate. They talked a bit more, then said goodbye. It was friendly, warm, but there was no spark of romance. Just respect and good memories. When Taemin got home, it was late. Lyra was still awake, reading on the couch. She looked up when he entered. How was it? She asked. It was good. We talked. We cleared things up. I think we both needed that closure. Closure. Another complex word. Taemin sat down next to her. It means the end of something, but in a peaceful way. I can still care about her, but I am not in love with her anymore. There is a difference between loving someone and being in love. Yes, being in love is intense. It is romantic. You want to be with that person all the time. Loving someone is quieter. You care about their happiness even if they are not in your life anymore. Lyra wrote this down carefully. Then she looked at Taemin with an expression he had not seen before. It was almost sad. I did not like knowing you were with her today, Lyra said quietly. Why not? I do not know. I felt uncomfortable, restless. I kept checking the time, wondering when you would come back. Taemin's heart beat faster. He looked at Lyra's face. Her violet eyes were confused and vulnerable. Lyra, that feeling you are describing. That sounds like jealousy. Jealousy? But that would mean she did not finish the sentence. They sat in silence. The air between them suddenly feeling different. Heavier. Charged with something neither of them wanted to name yet. I should go to bed, Lyra said finally. She stood up quickly. Lyra. She stopped but did not turn around. I am glad you were waiting for me to come home. Lyra nodded once, then walked to her room and closed the door. Taman sat alone in the living room for a long time. Something had changed between them, something he had not expected. Lyra was learning about human emotions, but what happened when an alien started having feelings? And what happened when he realized he might be having feelings too? Things were different after that night. Taman and Lyra were more careful around each other. They avoided being too close. They kept conversations safe and academic. But the tension was there, humming beneath everything they said. A week later, Minho called Taman in distress. His girlfriend had broken up with him. He needed a friend. Come over, Taman said immediately. Minho arrived looking terrible. His eyes were red. His hair was messy. He collapsed on the couch and put his face in his hands. I thought she was the one, Minho said. I was going to propose next month. I had already bought the ring. Lyra watched from the kitchen doorway. She had been making tea when Minho arrived. Now she stood frozen, watching a human in real emotional pain for the first time. Taman sat next to Minho. He did not say anything at first. He just sat there being present. That was what Minho needed. After a while, Minho started talking. He told them everything. About the fights they had been having. About how she said she felt trapped. About how she wanted different things in life. Lyra slowly walked over and sat in the chair across from them. She watched Minho's face. She saw his pain, and for the first time she felt it too. Her chest hurt. Her eyes felt strange and wet. I know it does not feel like it now, Taman said, but you will be okay. It takes time, but the pain gets smaller. How long? Minho asked. I do not know. It is different for everyone. Lyra spoke suddenly. I am sorry you are hurting. Both men looked at her. Minho gave her a sad smile. Thanks, Lyra. That means a lot. After Minho left a few hours later, Lyra sat very still on the couch. Taman cleaned up the empty mugs. Are you okay? He asked Lyra. I felt his pain. Not just understood it, I felt it. My chest hurt watching him suffer. She looked at Taman with wonder in her eyes. This is empathy. Real empathy. Not just knowing someone is hurt, but feeling it with them. Yes, that is exactly what it is. My people gave this up. We decided it was too painful, too inefficient. But now I understand what we lost. Connection. Real connection comes from sharing not just joy, but pain too. A few days later, Taman took Lyra to a traditional festival. It was a warm evening. The streets were full of people. There were food stalls and games and music. Lyra looked around with wide eyes. Everything was bright and loud and alive. Taman bought them both Korean street food. They tried different things, laughing when Lyra made faces at the spicy rice cakes. Too hot? Taman asked, grinning. Very hot, but also good. She smiled at him. This is fun. It was the first time Taman had heard Lyra use that word. Fun, not interesting or educational. Just fun. They walked through the festival. At one point, the crowd pushed them together. Taman reached out to steady Lyra. Their hands touched. Neither of them pulled away. They stood like that for a moment, hands touching, surrounded by noise and light and people. Taman looked at Lyra. Her silver hair caught the lantern light. Her violet eyes were bright with happiness. She was beautiful, and she was looking at him like he was the only person in the world. Taman felt his heart race. This was dangerous. She was leaving in a few months. She was an alien. This could not work. But in that moment, none of that mattered. Someone bumped into them and the moment broke. They continued walking, but now they were both quiet. The air between them felt electric. That night, Lyra could not sleep. She stood on the small balcony of the apartment, looking at the city lights. Taman found her there. Cannot sleep? He asked. Too many thoughts. He stood next to her. They both looked at the city. I contacted my homeworld today, Lyra said quietly. I sent my research report. What did you tell them? Everything. About friendship. About family. About love. About how humans choose connection even though it causes pain. About empathy and vulnerability and trust. What did they say? Lyra was quiet for a long time. Then she said, They are concerned. My reports show that I am developing emotional responses. They think I have been compromised by human influence. They are ordering me home. Immediately. Taman felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. When 1 week. They are sending a ship on 1 week. That was all the time they had left. I do not want to go, Lyra said. Her voice was small. This is new for me, wanting something so much it hurts. I do not want to leave Earth. I do not want to leave Minho and Hana. I do not want to leave you. Tamien turned to face her. Lyra. She looked at him. There were tears in her eyes. He had never seen her cry before. I think I am falling in love with you, she whispered. Is that what this feeling is? This ache in my chest when I think about leaving? This need to be near you? This happiness when you smile? Tamien could not breathe. He reached up and touched her face. Her skin was cool and smooth. Yes, he said. That is love. And I think I am falling in love with you too, but you are leaving. I know. They stood there on the balcony looking at each other, finally understanding what all those human stories were about.
Love and loss.
Joy and pain. The courage it takes to feel anything at all. Now I understand your original question, Lyra said. Why humans persist in relationships despite the pain. Because this feeling, even knowing it will end, even knowing it will hurt, this is worth it. Being alive means feeling everything, the good and the bad, and I would rather feel this for 1 week than feel nothing forever. The last week passed too quickly. Tamien and Lyra spent every moment together. They did not talk much about her leaving. Instead, they focused on being present. They cooked meals together. They watched the sunrise from the balcony. They walked through the city holding hands. Minho and Hana came over for dinner one last time. Nobody mentioned the goodbye that was coming. On the final night, Tamien and Lyra sat on the balcony again. This had become their place, where they talked about important things. Do you remember when you first asked me to teach you about relationships? Tamien said. Yes. I wanted to understand why humans choose connection despite the pain. And now you know? Lyra looked at the stars. Her home was up there somewhere, impossibly far away. Yes. The pain proves it mattered. If I felt nothing when I left, it would mean these months meant nothing. But I do feel. I feel so much it is overwhelming. This pain is proof that what we have is real. She turned to him. Her violet eyes were bright with tears. Love is not efficient. It does not make logical sense. But it makes life meaningful. That is what humans understand that my people forgot. Meaning is more important than efficiency. Tamien took her hand. I wish you could stay. I wish I could too. They sat in silence. Then Lyra spoke again. Tamien, thank you. For what? For teaching me what it means to be alive. For showing me that emotions are not weakness. For helping me understand that the most important things cannot be measured or optimized. They can only be felt. Tamien pulled her close. They kissed under the stars. It was their first real kiss. Gentle and sad and perfect. The next morning, they went to the spaceport. It was a huge building on the edge of the city. Other Valorans were there, waiting to return home. Lyra checked in at the desk. A tall Valoran approached them. She looked older than Lyra, with silver markings on her blue skin that suggested high rank. Lyra, the woman said, I am Commander Scylla. I came personally to escort you home. Tamien's heart sank. This was it. The end. But then Commander Scylla did something unexpected. She looked at Tamien, then back at Lyra. Your reports have caused quite a discussion on our homeworld, the commander said. Your findings about human emotional bonds. Your theory that we lost something important when we eliminated attachment from our society. Lyra stood straighter. I stand by my research, the commander smiled slightly. That is good. Because the council has been debating your conclusions. Some believe you have been corrupted. Others believe you have discovered something we need to reconsider. And what do you believe? Lyra asked. Commander Scylla looked at them both for a long moment. I believe you have experienced something real, and I believe our species needs to learn from it. The Council has decided to extend the cultural exchange program. We want to understand these human emotional bonds better. We want more Valorans to experience what you have experienced. She paused. Lyra, you have a choice. You can return home with me for evaluation, or you can stay here as Earth's first permanent Valoran liaison. You would continue your research. You would help other Valorans understand human relationships. The choice is yours. Tamien could not breathe. He looked at Lyra. Her eyes were wide with shock. I can stay, Lyra whispered, if you choose to. But understand what that means. You would be choosing emotion over logic, connection over efficiency. You would be choosing the human way, with all the pain and joy that comes with it. Lyra looked at Tamien. Then back at the commander. This is the ultimate human decision, is it not? Lyra said softly. To choose love even when it is uncertain. To choose connection even when it might hurt. To be brave enough to feel. She took Taemin's hand. I choose to stay. I choose this. I choose him. Commander Sela nodded. Then you have learned the most important lesson. Goodbye, Lyra. I will tell the council of your decision. She left. Taemin and Lyra stood there, still holding hands, both in shock. You stayed, Taemin said. I stayed, why? Lyra smiled through her tears. Because you taught me something my people forgot. Some things are worth the risk. Some things are worth the pain. Love is one of those things. Taemin pulled her into his arms. They stood there in the spaceport, holding each other, while other travelers moved around them. 6 months later, Taemin and Lyra stood in front of a classroom. 20 young Velerans sat at desks, notebooks ready. They had all volunteered to come to Earth to study human emotions. Welcome, Lyra said to them. We are here to teach you about human relationships, about friendship, family, and love, about vulnerability and trust, about why humans choose connection despite the pain it can cause. Taemin stepped forward. Some of you may think emotions are weakness, that efficiency and logic are superior, but you will learn that the opposite is true. Humans are strong because we feel, not in spite of it. One of the young Velerans raised a hand. Is it true that you two are in a relationship? Lyra smiled and took Taemin's hand. Yes, we are. How is that possible? You are from different species. The young Veleran looked confused. That is exactly the point, Lyra said. Love does not follow rules. It is not efficient or logical. It happens anyway. And that is what makes it powerful. After class, Taemin and Lyra walked home through the city. The same streets where they had walked months ago, when Lyra was still learning what friendship meant. Now she understood so much more. Do you ever regret staying? Taemin asked. Never. Every day I am grateful for this choice, for this life. For you, even the hard days, especially the hard days, because those days prove I am really living. My people tried to remove all pain from life, but in doing so they removed all meaning too. You cannot have joy without the possibility of sorrow. You cannot have love without the risk of loss. That is what being human means. And I am honored to experience it. They reached their apartment building, their home. Lyra looked up at the windows. You know what the irony is? She said. I came to Earth to study human relationships, to understand why you persist in connection despite the pain. And the answer was simple all along. What is the answer? Lyra smiled at him. The pain is not something to endure despite the love. The pain is part of the love. They are inseparable, and together they make us brave. Together they make us human, or in my case, human enough, she added with a laugh. Taemin kissed her forehead. You are perfect exactly as you are. They went inside together, ready for whatever came next, because that was what love meant. Facing the unknown together, choosing each other every day, being brave enough to feel everything, the good and the bad, and knowing that it was all worth it. Every moment, every tear, every smile, all of it. That was what it meant to be alive. That was what it meant to love. And Lyra, the alien who came to study human relationships, had learned the most important lesson of all. She had learned how to be human, not in biology but in spirit. And in the end, that was all that mattered.